we share a little insight and a little settling for the day ahead. And today we're going to talk about is the idea of the battleground state. We live here, New Church Live has congregants all over the place. And we happen to live, however, in Pennsylvania. Susan and I call southeastern Pennsylvania home. And so Pennsylvania, this election cycle is called the Battleground State. We hear a lot of that, like this is the Battleground State. And you hear, some other states sharing that same particular descriptor. And I was thinking about it with the election season and thinking, oh yeah, and it's kind of true on both levels, right? We can look at that literally and we can look at that figuratively. Obviously, politically, we look at that literally. So one of the states is a toss-up, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the bigger challenge is the metaphorical bit when we really go into life with the battleground state. In other words, the state of mind that everything is a battleground. It's interesting when, what's the right way I want to say this? I think so much of spirituality is trying to figure out what's the paradigm you're going to hold life in. And there are different times of life where we have different paradigms, and I think real wisdom is knowing when it's the right time for the right paradigm. But it's also very easy to get stuck and to really come into something believing, again, like it's all a battle. It's all a battleground. It's all zero-sum game. If they win, we lose. If we lose, they win. Again, zero-sum gain on so many levels. Complete binary thinking of either or. And that's really, really challenging. And that's what a battleground state is in our minds. It was interesting, we were looking a little bit at this on Sunday when we did a service about bridging the divide. Great service, highly recommend you go back, take a look at it. Sermon writing team did a wonderful job in really kind of fashioning it and putting it together. And I just was humbled by how much great insight they had that we were able to speak to on Sunday. And a part of that that was really fascinating was a note somebody texted in, and they were talking about two Supreme Court justices. And, super conservative justice, super liberal justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And here I'm totally forgetting the other one. I just had it in my mind and I'm forgetting it. So my apologies there. But two very extremely different perspectives. And yet they had such a deep friendship that their families would spend every New Year's Eve together. And how beautiful is that? Anthony Scalia, that was it. Anthony Scalia, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And two talk about different perspectives. And I'm a political science major, and they were different. But you know what? It's like they had their battles, but that wasn't their paradigm. Their paradigm was not a battleground state of mind, because if that was their complete paradigm, then they never would have been friends. Clearly, they were holding on to something that was higher and better, and that allowed them to overcome their differences. Still have the differences, but overcome them and note how the friendship was more important than any of those other things, and serving the higher purpose. It's interesting, we see little bits of that, obviously, in terms of how God works as well. And this is talking in here in this particular line about how God kind of holds things. And when Jesus came to earth, kind of what were the trials and tribulations he faced. And I want to read it because I think the point here is that there's this perspective of a battle that's going on, but then there's always this higher perspective. It's like, here's the battle down here, and then there's this thing up here. And oftentimes, all we do is we live in this paradigm and we forget this higher thing up here. So let me read this to you. The trial mentioned in Matthew 4, 1 through 11, Mark 1, 12 to 13, and Luke 4, 1 through 13 sums up all the Lord's trials and tribulations, which consisted in his battling the self-love, and that's narcissism, right? Self-love completely run crazy, and materialism that filled the hells. He battled out of love for the entire human race. Now that's the key line, right? So we have the battleground down here, but then we have the bigger part up here, and that's the love that God had for the entire human race. And that's we'll never do it the way Jesus did it, because that's way beyond any humans to even remotely think that we can somehow reflect that is really tough. But we can, in some tiny little infinitesimally small and perfect way, reflect it. And the way I see that, the way I'd ask us to maybe think about it, see if try this on, is to try to move away from a paradigm where it's all this battleground and to remember the bigger picture. Now, that doesn't mean we don't battle at a certain level. Again, Scalia, Ginsburg. It doesn't mean we don't battle or argue, but it's all within this higher perspective of that it's out of love for the entire human race. It's out of this love for everyone that we have to come to these battles with. And that means, it's like, it puts us, I mean, this is maybe not a great analogy, but it takes us from just this battleground state into this idea that there's a bigger whole there. There's a country, there's a nation, there's a future, there's a history, there's a culture, there's these much bigger places where this little battleground state is taking place. And we constantly need to remember those bigger things and come to it all with a love for all people. I mean, that's really key. Come to it with a love for all people, because we can't just stay in the battleground state. That's no good. And I think we could all see that energy, whether it's the far left or the far right. The energy oftentimes is very similar. It's very disparaging of the other. It's very all or nothing. And we can't live in that place, folks. It's not where the future lies. The future lies, keep coming back to Jesus's examples of the third way. That there's something that we can find that's a both and as we move forward in life. Honoring other perspectives, being clear about our voice, super clear about our voice, super clear about our perspectives, and keeping it all within this context of love for the entire human race. And that'll move us beyond a battleground state into a much different state. And it's one where lots of tensions, lots of challenges, lots of problems to solve, but the idea that we're going to figure out a way to solve them together. So that's my thought for today of moving away from the battleground state. And with that, dear friends, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little breath here, and we're going to listen to a prayer bell, do a little meditation on something from the Old Testament, a little prayer, a little blessing, and then we'll say hi to folks on Facebook. So with that, dear friends, let's get a little breath and the prayer bell. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends, we're going to hop on over here and take a quick look on Facebook. Any comments you'd like to leave? And again, feel free to leave comments at any point in time. It's just wonderful to hear from folks and hear what you're thinking, hear how life is going for you. All right, Sherry, good morning to you. I hope you're doing very well, my friend, this fine, beautiful fall morning. Now we'll flip over here real quick. All right, Sherry, good morning to you. Linda, good morning to you, my dear friend. Marcus, good morning. Linda, good morning. Great to see you folks joining us this morning. So wishing everyone all the best. God bless.